we finally have a ton of information about Assassin's Creed VR on the Quest. The Assassin's Creed Nexus trailer was showed yesterday at Ubisoft Forward, and it was kind of underwhelming, to be honest, as it was just CGI. It didn't show any gameplay. But with some deep diving, I found gameplay screenshots and a ton of information about what the game has to offer and how it plays. So let's take a leap of faith together and check out all of this information on Assassin's Creed Nexus coming to the Quest later this year. Okay, so here's the thing. The trailer was cool that they showed at the Ubisoft Forward, but it didn't really tell us anything, except for the fact that it's supposed to be coming this holiday season, and it showed that we are going to be able to play 3 different characters. Beyond that, didn't show us any gameplay, any mechanics, any of that stuff. Not even any pieces of gameplay footage. But did some deep diving and digging and found a lot more information. So that's what we're going to go over, okay? First off, these are real screenshots you're seeing here. Don't believe me? I have it from a very reliable source that I trust explicitly, that has inside information, that knows this is actually Quest 2 screenshots. Apparently, the developer is extremely proud of what they've been able to accomplish on the Quest 2. Looks fantastic. I cannot wait to go to these locations. It's funny because I cannot wait to play as Ezio. He's by far my favorite assassin, but I almost am looking more forward to playing as Connor, because I want to go to 1776, which is the time period we are actually going to go in this, and go through colonial Boston. That just sounds fantastic. I'll be honest, I love Assassin's Creed, but I did not play the game that Cassandra was in. I just never got around to playing that one. These screenshots blow my mind if this is truly Quest 2 footage, and I have no reason to believe that it's not based on what I've heard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go between the trailer and these screenshots while we talk, just so you have something to look at. And we're going to talk about what we know about this game. And it's actually quite a bit if you look really deep dive into it. First off, if you go to the Assassin's Creed Nexus website, and it does have one, there's quite a bit of information just there. There's also been an interview with the creative director, or several of them, that we'll go over in just a minute, that gives us a lot more information that actually made me more excited than the screenshots and the trailer. First off, on the Assassin's Creed website, it says, play a pivotal role in history in this new story built only for VR. Thrust your blade in visceral combat as you climb and parkour anywhere throughout the open maps. Keyword, open maps. Okay, so this is not an open world game, but the maps that it puts you in are open maps. Hopefully without any time limit. We don't know that for sure, but I would love to just be able to go to at least that portion of Boston that we can go to and climb around, or Venice, or whatever, and just parkour all over the place. I used to love doing that in the Assassin's Creed games. So open maps. You can explore them how you want. Just like in Assassin's Creed, you'll be able to run across the rooftops, stay in the shadows, go into crowds and hide, or run in with a sword, battling whoever you're supposed to take out. Continuing on. Stealthily blend into a crowd, interact with civilians, and feel the rush of air assassinations. Under the VR features heading, it says, all new Assassin's Creed story. Abstergo Industries has found a way to retrieve powerful lost artifacts that can be used to manipulate people's beliefs. To sabotage their plan, you'll uncover all new stories and accomplish new missions as legendary assassins. Explore and parkour freely. Nexus features a wide variety of historically accurate open maps with 360-degree navigation. Climb and parkour everywhere as you choose how to achieve your objectives. Intuitive combat. Use real-world motions as you block, parry, counterattack, and duel with reactive enemies. Choose from a large arsenal including the hidden blade, swords, tomahawk, bows, crossbows, throwing knives, and smoke bombs. And I'm just reading this right now because there's a lot more we're going to talk about when we get to the interview, a lot more information. This is just the basics we're kind of going through, and then we're going to jump over to the interview and do a deep dive into what it all means. So stealth. Try not to be seen. Using traditional and social stealth, hide in crowds, throw objects to create distractions, and feel the rush of air assassinations. We already read that part, kind of. As you move through the open maps, interact with historical figures, civilians, and enemies who react to your actions. Immersive cinematics put you in the game like never before. And of course, it does say this innovative comfort settings, peripheral vision blocking, teleportation, and more can be turned on to mitigate nausea, vertigo, and fear of heights. But according to the interview, which we're going to get into in a minute, everything in the game can be played without comfort settings. Parkour, leaps of faith, everything can be done without comfort settings, which could be fantastic and nausea-inducing depending on who you are. So you're going to play as 3 different assassins in this from different periods in history. Ezio, Cassandra, and Connor. Now, the interesting thing about this is Ezio and Cassandra's stories take place after the games that they exist in. And then Connor, though, takes place kind of in the middle of his story during that American Revolution. Again, we'll talk about that when we get to the interview, which we're going to actually go over to in just a second. But first, let's go to the Quest store page because it actually has more information. If you gather all of this together and put it all together, you can actually create a pretty good picture of what this game has to offer. It's just got a lot of fragmented information everywhere. Honestly, I'm not sure why they didn't share any of this, especially the screenshots and what the game is at this forward. It's like they threw the trailer in there just because they had to. I guess that's the world of VR, still not as popular as flat games, but maybe it'll get there someday. Anyways, the Quest store says, for the first time in franchise history, step into the world of Assassin's Creed and play in first person. Embody legendary assassins Ezio Auditore de Firenze, Cassandra, and Connor as you discover untold chapters of each assassin's story. Encounter familiar faces such as Leonardo da Vinci in the Italian Renaissance, and a story full of harrowing conflict, stolen treasure, and revenge. In ancient Greece, play a central role in an intense struggle during the American Revolution, get caught up in a world of espionage, intrigue, and betrayal. By the way, we'll reiterate this when we get to the interview again, but this is a full single-player story-based campaign. This is not just like missions that you go and you complete and they're one-off missions that they don't connect to anything. So what happens is that there is 3 different stories, and this is the first time it's ever happened in Assassin's Creed. 3 different assassins you're going to play as. Each of those people you're playing as has a story of their own that you're going to play through with missions and maps to play through, and the overall overarching story of the real world as you go into the Animus to play with these characters connects them all together. So each of their stories intermingle and intertwine with the real world story happening, as it usually does, outside of these Animus memories. Continuing on, what it says is explore iconic historical cities, including Venice, Athens, colonial Boston, and more. Embark on quests with the autonomy to decide the best way to achieve your objectives. The campaign features open map environments with 360-degree navigation, allowing you to climb and parkour anywhere, meet and interact with civilians and historical figures, all of whom react to your VR actions. Engage in realistic combat moves as you use your hands to block, parry, counterattack, and duel a variety of enemies. A wide range of weapons, including bow and arrows, the hidden blades, swords, tomahawk, throwing knives, crossbows, and smoke bombs attached to your full-body avatar. Full-body avatar. That actually gets me excited. Like, I kind of assumed we would have just the hands, and like the ghost body avatar kind of that we see in a lot of games. But the assassin's outfit is like half the fun of being in an Assassin's Creed game. Like, I love the outfits that they have, the assassin costumes, or whatever you want to call them, the garb that they wear. One of my favorite things. I'm so glad they decided to go with full body avatars. So you can actually pull your sword or tomahawk off of your body, and you'll see the hidden blade. We'll get to the hidden blade, but it's actually really cool how you activate it. That's in the interview. Just a second. Distract enemies by throwing objects found in the environment, or use the comprehensive stealth system to evade them. Okay, let's get to the interview. There's a lot of things I was going to say in this portion, but I want to talk about the interview because that's really where a lot of this fun stuff lies. And a lot of really amazing information about this. Okay, so as I mentioned, the Assassin's Creed website, the Ubisoft website, actually has an interview with creative director David. So let's just go over these questions and we'll talk about the answers. Here's the question. Assassin's Creed is a franchise known for a lot of climbing, fast movement, parkour. Does Nexus replicate that in VR? Is it a challenge to do so? Okay, so he says it definitely does. We really made a true Assassin's Creed game with climbing, parkour, free running, all of that. That's been a tenet of all Assassin's Creed games since the very first one. Players can sprint, climb, parkour, run around on the rooftops, and do a leap of faith. All of those exist in the game and are really fun to do. With that said, players also have the choice of how much they want to engage with those actions. You can do all of those things at high speed, you can take it slower, or you can just play on the ground and sneak and use hiding spots. The maps are all open environments to allow the player those types of choices. So great, lots of choices that can happen in this game. Perfect, because that's the way Assassin's Creed is supposed to be. Next question. How much freedom do players have to choose their own path? Is it a totally open sandbox, or are there linear levels with several intended paths? It is a core pillar that they're what we call open maps. It's not one big open world like in Assassin's Creed Odyssey or Valhalla, but it is very explorable. Think of Venice or Boston. In the section of town that you're playing, if you could see it, you can climb it. You could parkour it. You could scale it, traverse it horizontally, vertically, etc. Again, because that's what Assassin's Creed is, right? And we want to make sure we deliver on that. Most of the objectives in the game are what we call tactical sandboxes, which allow players 360 degrees of freedom in terms of how they approach it. Do they want to sneak in? Do they want to go in fighting, use the rooftops, or stay down on the ground? I will say that the first couple of missions are more linear as players learn how to play Assassin's Creed in VR. But after that, and for the rest of the campaign, it's all open environments. We felt it was very important to keep this core tenet of the brand intact. Okay, so the first few missions, obviously training missions, tutorials, all that stuff, more linear. But it sounds like as the game progresses and you get to the point where you're used to playing as an assassin, you're going to get open worlds to just play in, which sounds amazing. Hopefully, if you don't complete the mission like you do in Assassin's Creed, you can just kind of run around and play around and you just continuously parkour. That's kind of what I'm most excited about, honestly, just parkouring and free running on the rooftops of colonial Boston, for instance. That sounds amazing. Next question. With that openness, is there an ideal way to play? Is it best as a room scale game or as a seated experience? I'm just going to say right now what the answer is because this is a longer answer. He essentially says that you can play either way. The game is built to be played seated or standing, but the optimal way to play it to feel most like an assassin is to stand and use room scale, along with artificial locomotion, obviously, because it's going to have sticks to move because they're big maps. But that's the optimal way to play, according to him. How do players deploy the hidden blade? This is exciting, okay? Is there a motion for it, a button press? This is what the answer is. Bringing Assassin's Creed, or really any game to VR, you want to simulate the fantasy of how you would actually do it in real life. In real life, you'd flick open your wrist as the blade comes out to get your hand out of the way, which is exactly what you do in the game. You hold the top trigger and you flick your wrist open with the gesture and the hidden blade deploys. It's very much up to the player when they want to deploy it, and that action of deploying it has always been everyone's favorite thing during development. We really wanted to make it a tactile, real-life kind of motion. So, hidden blade. Pull down on the trigger, flick your wrist, like your Spider-Man kind of, and the hidden blade pops out. I can't wait to do that. 2 of the assassins have 2 hidden blades. Cassandra only has 1. Oh my word, you have no idea how excited I am to stand on the top of a building, flick both of my hidden blades open, and leap off of the building. That has been my dream since hearing about this game. I cannot wait to do that. The next question is about people who get motion sick in VR. I'm just going to cut this question short and just tell you that they've had a department that has been designed to make sure there's comfort settings for everything possible throughout the development of this game. So there are pretty much innumerable options for things you can do for... Sorry, I just bit my tongue while I was saying that. There are innumerable options for things you can do in the game for comfort, even teleportation. But they've actually designed it in such a way that if you're going to teleport, you can see beforehand what that teleportation is going to do to the guards. There's apparently a colored reticle or something. I'm not really sure how it works 100% yet. But when you go to teleport across the street, it'll warn you that, this isn't safe to do because people are going to notice, that kind of thing. Unique ways to do it if you want to teleport. Next up, pivoting to the characters. Nexus puts players in the shoes of Ezio, Connor, and Cassandra. Why focus on these characters specifically? It just goes into the answer that says they picked Ezio because he's the most popular of all time, Connor because of the time period, colonial America. They said it's a really compelling setting, and then Cassandra is a close second for popularity, so they went with her. And then the question was asked if there is a difference in playing the assassins, if you have to adapt to each one. The answer was kind of. They balanced it so that everything feels similar, although there's different weapons for some of the people, and Cassandra only has 1 hidden blade, and there's a different bow, and all the kinds of things like that. But for the most part, it feels consistent so that you don't have to try to relearn every time you change assassins. All right, so the next question is, where in these character stories did the events take place? And I already mentioned this, but we'll read this just so you have a general idea of what's happening. Generally speaking, they're later in the lives of these characters. Ezio's story begins around 1509, 2 years, it's 2 years, okay. 2 years after the events of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. It was Cassandra that was 20 years, actually. So Cassandra is 20 years after the events of Odyssey, during a real historical period called the Reign of the 30 Tyrants, and then Connor's is intermingled with the events of Assassin's Creed 3. It happens in 1776 and 1777. So it's additional stories of what was going on with him at the time. So you'll see additional pieces of what he was doing kind of while you were playing the actual Assassin's Creed 3. Then it was asked if there is a common thread for these stories, and essentially what I said earlier, the modern-day story connects them all together. There's some other questions about the weight of and responsibility of bringing these characters back, and they said that it was a lot of weight, you know what I mean? Stepping into the boots of Ezio. And then they just talked about working in virtual reality, if it was most interesting and exciting. And I'll read that one because I think it's exciting. For me, my passion for VR goes back to the 90s when I first heard about it. I wanted to make games, and the idea of immersive gaming really struck me. I think the reason is it can be really the most immersive form of entertainment that we've ever known. I like to describe it as VR allows us to go places and become people and do things that we otherwise could not do. So that immersion, escapism, or perhaps a better word is transcendence, is what I really love about VR. In this case, it allows us to step into the boots of these characters and actually become a master assassin. I also like to make clear that we're not creating a small VR experience, this is exciting, with a little bit of Assassin's Creed sprinkled on top. We're creating a proper Assassin's Creed game that maximizes the use of VR to immerse the player into becoming a master assassin more deeply than ever before. Assassin's Creed is launching this holiday season, it says, on the Meta Quest 2, Quest Pro, and Quest 3. Now, going back to those screenshots really quickly before we end this video. The screenshots show for Quest 2. Can you imagine what it's going to look like on Quest 3? Like, I can't wait to find out. I'm so excited for this. You have no idea. That interview got me so hyped and excited for this game. Hopefully it did for you too. Like, obviously we have to wait and see if it's actually true and if it actually is going to be as good as they say. But it's supposedly a AAA game, real Assassin's Creed game, hopefully with at least like a 5, 6, 7 hour campaign. Love to be longer than that, but I'm guessing it's probably like 5 to 6 hours, maybe a little longer, with real mechanics. Like there was leaks last year about the mechanics in the game not being great, some things being clumsy, but they've had a year to adjust it, and then they've got to the end of the year to really finish it. So I'm hoping some massive adjustments have happened. If those things were true in the leaks previously anyways, I don't know. It's hard to say, really. But I personally am extremely excited for Assassin's Creed Nexus. How about you? Let me know in the comments if you're excited for this game and what you're most excited about playing and what your favorite assassin is. Let me know down below. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with all things Quest. Thanks so much for watching, and happy questing.